All right, my good buddy Rishi is here. Some are saying the hottest man in tennis, DFS, and handicapping. Thank you for joining me today on this wonderful Monday afternoon.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, I know you had a huge weekend, and our subscribers had a huge weekend as well with the big 90-1 pre-tournament Madison Keys hit on the Australian Open. So, you know, listen, this is a golf podcast. We talk a lot of golf on Inside Golf Pod. We've got about 7 videos this week on YouTube and about 6,000 words behind the paywall at ISN as well, breaking down Pebble Beach. I want to talk a little tennis and football with you, man, because I think that what we're doing at ISN in terms of like our other sports channel, which has now somehow surpassed our golf channel in activity, is something I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit more on and get more people kind of just inundated with like what you're doing and your tennis handicapping strategy, your NFL handicapping strategy. Obviously, we had a big, I know you had a huge Chiefs ticket as well last night. So let's start big picture here. How'd you start betting tennis? How'd you get into the tennis game? What's at all?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing it up, and it's always fun to talk some tennis. Yeah, so it's kind of a couple different things. I mean, I'm sure you can relate. The first part it starts with is that I played tennis all growing up, played it across all levels. I was up at 6 playing this morning, so I've always had
To
enjoyment, and a big part of
We
this
gotta
has
play,
been
man. I love it.
yeah,
I played growing up as well. I went to the Ledbetter side of the Bolletary academies, but
yeah.
became very close friends with a lot of tennis players down during my warm summers in hot Florida.
Yeah, it's an awesome time, and yeah, we'll definitely get on the courts. But that's kind of where it starts. It's like you love playing it, you love watching it, and a big part of like this enjoyment has been awesome watching other people in our Discord. One, obviously there's some people that watch a lot of it. There's some casual watchers, but then there's been folks that have kind of just tailed our hot streak that have just started watching. So that's been a fun part of it. So that's one part of it. The other part of it's just the edge, in tennis. So at least with like US domestic betting markets like FanDuel or DraftKings, the markets are pretty soft. And by that, I mean, it's just there's not a lot of volume that way. So it's not going to be as sharp as markets as you see in like NFL or NBA. So, you can find, you can go to Hard Rock and find a Tommy Paul ticket at 200-1. And then you may go to DraftKings and find the same ticket for 60-1 because it's all driven by, volume. And given the low
Yeah.
amount of volume in men's and even more so in women's tennis, there's a lot of opportunity to find mispricing. So, that created an interest, a further interest there. And then the third part of it's just the variance. As you know, like with golf, it's so fun because you and I have a similar strategy that we embrace a wide range of outcomes that a lot of people don't embrace. And that's kind of the same with tennis. I mean, that's how you jump on somebody like a Madison Keys to win. It's like, all right, I'm not going to pick the Sabalenka or the Swiatek, both of whom she went through to win. It's at any given day, it's a bracket, and you can win one versus one. And so you're combining all three aspects of enjoyment, the edge, the variance. It's like it's a great opportunity, both in DFS and in the outright markets.
Yeah, it always seems to me like some of these niche markets and we had that with golf for a while. I think unfortunately golf is getting sharper and sharper and there's more information, there's been a lot of market correcting, no thanks to myself in terms of like good golf content that is actual, actionable info out there. I think back in the day with golf betting, it used to be like recent form and course history, right? There was no one really talking about golf courses and agronomy and running models with tools like the rabbit hole. But I feel like tennis is still like, are people making tennis models? Like, are people is that level of tennis handicapping? I'm sure there's some people that do that, but has there been any embrace of advanced analytics in tennis to your knowledge? And is that at all a part of your process, or is it more just kind of like ball knowing? Like you just watch a shit ton of tennis, and it is very easy to see when books have a misprice.
Yeah, I would say it's, well, to the former question, I don't think there's a lot of advanced analytics to it, at least in domestic markets. I'm sure, tennis is bet on a lot more at a global scale, at least in the outright market. So I'd say from a domestic standpoint and from a DFS standpoint, I don't think there's a lot of, digging into it. I think a lot of people look at past matchups and, I would say course equivalent. So form history, prior experience in the Australian Open and things like that. But yeah, for me personally, yeah, I do dig into the numbers, from a how much juice is on a player standpoint and how I look at their valuation versus, what my numbers or how my numbers spit it out versus how the books are setting it up. So yeah, I get certainly more into the numbers a little bit, first serve percentage, what's that look like against somebody who's, not winning a lot of first serve points on receiving. And so there's a lot of different ways to look about it, but yeah, we certainly get a little bit more granular than I think the vast majority of folks betting on it today.
So it's essentially basically matchup based. Like it's the same way you have to think about golf in terms of, the player is playing the golf course. So how that player sets up for that specific golf course is going to play a massive role in how you handicap the tournament. And just like with tennis, based on the opponent, you have to identify whether that player is a good fit, not just maybe for the surface that they're playing on, but also how that relationship would interact with who they're playing. It's interesting. I'm a big tennis lover, but I have not gotten into handicapping tennis or the analytical side of it outside of really just tailing your information. But my second cousin Elliot Spizzeri was the number one tennis player in America at University of Texas. And he almost just qualified for the Australian Open. But I mean, Tommy Paul is his mentor. We're both big Tommy guys, and like he's already been completely embraced by that group of American tennis players like the Taylor Fritzes and Ben Sheltons, and Tommy Pauls and Francis TFO, right?
Yep.
TFO as well. And I was talking to, because I saw him at Thanksgiving. I see him like once a year at our big family Thanksgiving. And
Yep.
I always just corner him at the dinner table and are like, let's just do an off-air podcast right now because I have so many questions to ask you. And he was telling me about how tennis training, for youth, like the way that tennis quote unquote prospects are being developed through these academies like Bolletary is changing so much over the
Yep.
last couple of years. And, not to make like a rollback joke about tennis, but it is all about optimizing first serve speed. Like
Yeah.
he was telling me that now in tennis, there's this whole other aspect of training to maximize your speed, because if you just have that type of speed that, like, I don't know, who would you consider like the best server in tennis? Fritz is pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, Fritz is pretty good. Zverev obviously has a big
Yeah.
serve. Kyrgios formerly. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, to your point, it's like a lot of the shorter players in tennis are kind of ruled out of being elite just because, over the net, it's pretty intuitive to say that they can't have a massive serve. But yeah, to your question on, the similarity, there's a lot of parallels to the golf part, that those being, the biggest thing is you look at kind of recent form and then you look at, the course equivalent or, prior event history. The difference in the dynamic is, yes, it's matchup based. So you're looking at their opponent. If you pick an outright in advance of the schedule coming out, you're going to get more value potentially on it. If they end up coming out and then the bracket's pretty tough, like for Madison Keys, we didn't know, and she ended up going through the hardest road to win it, which was awesome. But yeah, it's a risk reward sort of thing. And then from a DFS standpoint, half of the pool is playing the other half of the pool. So that's the other difference there. It's not just one player in isolation. It's like you're either picking, you can pick the person the opponent of another player in the pool, but that's going to probably take you out of winning. So you want to pick 6 players that are going to win their matches, basically. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but to your point, it's probably where golf was like 5 years ago as far as a DFS community. There's not a lot there as far as content goes, which creates a lot of opportunity to
Yeah. So
win.
why don't we be first? Like, that's what I'm thinking, having this conversation with you and doing this podcast. Like, we should just invest all of our, like, we probably are the preeminent tennis Discord already, just because we have 400 messages a night during the Australian Open about tennis. Like the absolute lunatics that we are. But I
Yep.
want to get, because you're also, an investor in the company and part of this with me. I want to invest in tennis data. Like is there a data golf for tennis even?
No, there's nothing like, I'm sure you can find data scattered around, but not like a hub for the totality of data.
So for your job, that probably just makes your job that much more. It's like, having, before data golf and the rabbit hole existed, trying to mine and piece together golf data from, PGAtour.com and all of these different sites was just a nightmare. I honestly think how we've kind of accidentally found ourselves as this, having a tennis product, which essentially, outside of this podcast, our tennis product has just been entirely everybody tailing your tennis bets and tennis DFS plays. I actually think there might be something that, like, the entrepreneur in me really believes that I think there actually might be something there if we're able to corner the tennis market, because there's 3 more majors of the year, right? Like, there's, we just finished the Australian Open. The next, when's the next one? Roland Garros?
Roland Garros tends to be in May, and then you'd have Wimbledon in July, and then end of August, early September, you have the U.S. Open. So, yeah, no. And to your question about being able to parse together the data, yes, it certainly stinks for some aspects of it. The other part of it's that I know that 95% of the people in those pools are too lazy to kind of collect all that data, and so once you kind of know where it is. It's kind of the advantage is being able to be like, I'm willing to do the work to kind of figure out, where, who's going to win and what's going to come together that other people aren't going to be doing. So it's another edge that way.
What's the tennis DFS landscape at all, if any? Like, I know you already took down a GPP in tennis for the Australian Open, but like, who is playing these contests? Or is it the same type of names that you'll see sometimes in golf contests or other niche sport contests? And is anyone creating content around this at all? Do the contests fill? Are they actually good contests?
I think more times than not, you get overlay. Especially, well, I only really do it exclusively on the major side. And so I think you get a lot of opportunities where they don't fill completely. There's one max group where the top prize ends up being 10 or 20K. The money doesn't look like that when it's in the regular tournament contest. Like, there's a tennis tournament today, but the max prize is like 2,000 or something like that,
And that would maybe be the downside for us investing heavily in tennis, is that outside
Correct.
of the majors, is there really enough interest that, like, I mean, I know if there's anyone that would be playing like tennis DFS for ATP Cincinnati, it would be the people in our Discord, but
Yeah.
which I say as a complete compliment.
Yep.
But outside of the majors, it's not a lot. There's, do you spend a lot of time on the other tournaments outside of the majors, or is it kind of almost like what we worry the PGA Tour is becoming, where they're just, it really just all falls on these 4 weeks to generate all of the excitement about the tennis calendar?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's very similar to that. The two equivalents of like signature event equivalents would be probably the Miami Open, which is in early March, and then Indian Wells in California on your side, in your neck of the woods, which is the other. And so those are like 1,000 events. And then there's the 250 and 500 events, which are not usually a ton of big players. If big players are in it, you're at the risk of them withdrawing because they don't lose a lot of points that way. So not too dissimilar from what you see in the golf landscape. People are going to try to play the signature events. They're definitely trying to play the majors. The other tournaments, you're going to get relatively weak fields, and it's subject to a lot of risk, both from people withdrawing, but also, on the lower side, there's been word that people can get, paid and incentivized to throw matches and things like that. And I don't know how much proof there is behind it, but it's probably a reality to some level of it.
And just to circle back on the tennis DFS piece, because I feel like the second half of my question led you down a little bit of a different direction. I get so excited talking about this stuff, my brain just starts firing thoughts before I allow you to even fully answer the question before I think of a new one. Are you familiar with anyone else playing tennis
I'm
DFS?
not.
Like it
Yeah.
what is, if is there any community out there, and if it is it recognizable and at all comparable to golf?
It's not from what I know. I don't ever see, I mean, during the Australian Open, I think I played during, the 10 or 12 days, and I saw a lot of the same people that way. But I think it's just a group of casual folks where, in, full transparency, anytime I really put in money, I was taking out a profit. And it's not because I'm just the sharpest tennis person out there. It's because I think, relative to the field, it was a bunch of casual folks just wanting to put in, $15 tickets, one or two of them versus putting in 25 of them or whatever the case may be. So the long answer of saying that I think it's mostly a casual group of investors, which again, another way of saying that there's an edge to be had there.
You know, part of the reason why I was so happy to have you invest in the company, because like I knew that you kind of saw our vision, and that what you're doing in tennis right now is a somewhat perfect example of that. Because I had a lot of friends in private equity that I play golf with, that when I brought them the idea for the company, they really wanted to invest. And nothing against them, there will be opportunities for them down the road, I'm sure. But it was very clear to me from the very beginning of when you and I started talking DFS, and this is not always common with investors, particularly passive investors, is that you are actually going to be a huge asset to the company yourself, in terms of, you know, you have zero interest, I know, in like gaining Twitter fame or increasing your following. But, I didn't hire anyone or partner with anyone because of their following or anything like that. I just believed in the concept that if you provide the best information possible and surround yourselves with the smartest people possible, also that are like genuinely like good people that you want to hang out with and talk sports with, and actually give you the time of the day, if you build like that, people will always come. But the fact that we have somehow accidentally found ourselves this burgeoning tennis product, and everyone in the Discord is like hitting Madison Keys 90-1 at the Australian Open, was, I'm not surprised knowing you, but was not something we really expected to happen. So like, for maybe the golf fans or the golf viewers or some of our people on the golf side of the Discord, what's like the Madison Keys comp, right? Like, how did you get on Madison Keys at 90-1? Her winning the Australian Open, what is that kind of equivalent to in the golf space? Because there's a lot of players that if they won a major at 90-1, it would be pretty wild, to be honest with you. Like, we really don't see a lot of major winners at 90-1 in golf.
Yeah. No, what I would say is that because I'm thinking about major equivalents, maybe like a Danny Willett Masters performance sort of situation. I mean, it was out there. So I gave out three outrights on the women's side, two outrights on the men's side. Four of our outrights, two on the women's, two on the men's, made the quarterfinals. So we felt like we were in a good position. And the fifth one, she got injured in that fourth round, and ultimately went out at 200-1. But so we felt like we had a good shot. Tommy Paul, ended up losing to Zverev, and then Sinner ended up killing Demon Hour. So those ones were out. And then Emma Navarro went out on the women's side. And then we had Madison Keys. And with the Madison Keys ticket, at 90-1, she was eventually playing Iga Swiatek, who was kind of the favorite to win on odds. And instead of kind of just holding the ticket, I basically said, listen, Madison Keys still has value here, so let's double down. So what ended up being really like a 90-1 ticket for those that kind of tailed the whole path, because then she played Iga at like 6 or 8-1, something like that, winning that match. And then she played Sabalenka at 4-1 in the final. And a handful of folks took Madison Keys to double down again. Ended up feeling like a 110 or 120-1 ticket. And ultimately, it was based on a couple different factors. One, she's kind of always been right on the cusp, but never really all the way there. I saw Madison Keys play live in the U.S. Open about 18 months ago, where she lost to Sabalenka in the semis. It was a heartbreaker. She had the match. Never knew if she would kind of come back to that level. So I knew she had a high ceiling. The second part of it being that the tournament before the Australian Open, because they get right into the season, is like a tune-up tournament in Australia. She was dominating in her tune-up tournament, where it was like she was in the final four. And so I said, look, she's looking pretty good. And I had heard that her fiance, now husband, who is her coach, had made some tweaks to her game, which were clearly working in the tune-up. So you stay kind of in tune with the pulse of the market a little bit as well. All those things combined basically said, listen, this number should be closer to like 45, not 90. And again, the soft pricing in the market gave us an opportunity to buy in, which is when I posted in the Discord and tweeted it out and said, this is going to be an automatic play from FanDuel. And so all those opportunities combined gave us a lot of value. And fortunately, we're on the lucky side of it.
Just not lucky, good side. You know, just for comparison's sake, like I'm looking at who's 90-1 right now for the Masters. And it's like Matt Fitzpatrick, Max Homa, Sung JM, Sahith Theegala. Maybe that's the comp, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be like if one of those players won the Masters. What about the men's side? What are the big takeaways for you on the men's side? Is Sinner like the guy? Do you think that he has the potential to go on a Federer, Djokovic, Nadal-esque run and be the crowning figure of our sport on the men's side? Or are we still, or do we still think Alcaraz might be that guy?
So Sinner doesn't lose on hard courts, so it's pretty much like Australian Open and US Open. It feels like he's almost gotten the bag. Now he is at a little bit of risk for this, I don't know, potentially accidentally taking a small dosage of steroid situation. There's going to be
not good,
like a trial with that. So there's a little at risk there, but yeah, on hard courts, I don't know if he's lost in like a year. So tough to beat that way. When you're talking about clay and grass, you know, Alcaraz is looking pretty amazing, kind of dominating on those surfaces. Djokovic is still around now. He's obviously seemingly on his last legs, but that's where the variance in the sport kind of is gone. On the men's side, it's seemingly, you know, first it was kind of the big four, big three, and now you have Alcaraz and Sinner kind of dominating all parts of it. So a little bit less variance that way. You have to be a little bit more selective on the men's side, but the women's side is pretty much wide open. And that's where there's a lot of opportunity. And again, there's a lot less dollars in that side of the market. And so you have opportunities for long shot outrights like 90-1s.
You know, it's so easy for me to conceptualize something like this is why Rory McIlroy plays great on longer golf courses. This is why Rory McIlroy has a built-in advantage on golf courses where he has a bunch of long irons and are super, super driver heavy and incentivize you to rip driver often off the tee. What do you think it is about Sinner that makes him so special on hard courts? Is it a first serve speed type of thing? Can you go in depth to that? I know there's probably less variables than the agronomy and architecture of a golf course on a tennis court, but is it kind of a similar thing where you can look at a player's skill set and say to yourself, this guy's going to be better on a hard court over a grass court or clay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, at the very simplest level, because obviously there's nuances even between hard courts inside and outside, but at the simplest level, the hard courts tend to move faster. The clay courts, you tend to have to slide around a little bit, quite literally, but the ball moves a little bit slower.
Slows down the pace, right?
Slows down the pace of the ball. So
yeah,
those big serves, obviously on the hard courts, really, really pop. On the clay courts, it's really seemingly like Nadal, a lot about mobility, a lot about having like top spin and how it spins off the ground, that sort of piece. And then on the grass courts, almost a completely different sport. Some players have been amazing historically in all aspects of the game, but they can't play on grass. It's just a completely different game. I think the ball has a completely different spin to it. It slows down a bit. Usually big serve players are really good on grass courts because they have a unique sort of spin coming out of it. So that's kind of like the high level differentiator between the game. You'd see Sinner getting a lot of pop on the ball in the hard courts. You see Alcaraz being able to be quite mobile and slide around because he's grown up, in Spain where clay courts are kind of the key to it. And that's kind of a big foundation of this too. It's what courts did a lot of these folks and, grow up on and play on when they were in their younger days and going through these academies as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweet, dude. Well, if anyone is listening to this right now and they have a genuine interest in tennis or a genuine interest in just wanting to make more money in the tennis space, reach out, DM us, DM me, join the Discord, DM Rishi, because it's a product at ISN that we are actually really interested and serious in investing in. So the more people that tell us, hey, this would actually be valuable for me if you guys did some real tennis content, did the occasional tennis pod, maybe worked with some stuff in the data space around these major championships, at least, hit us up. I'm very interested in and like genuinely believe in you as we have the right foundation and the right people around us and the right mindset to really do something cool in the tennis space if something is there. Talk to me a little bit about football, because you've had quite the run in the NFL as well. You were on the correct side of that Bills Chiefs game. You were pretty heavy on the Eagles, if I'm correct as well. I don't know if you were on that big preseason NFC future for me, but I know you hit the Eagles pretty hard, minus 5.5 in they played who did they play before Washington in the divisional round?
Oh yeah. Was that another blowout? Oh no, they were the Rams, right?
Yeah, you were big on Eagles over the Rams, I remember. And then obviously with the Commanders as well. How's football been for you? How's NFL been treating you this year on the handicapping side? Because it's been up and down for me. I had a Eagles NFC from the preseason just saved a lot of mistakes along the way to get me back in the green. But how has the NFL playoffs been for you, and maybe some takeaways from conference championship weekend?
Yeah, so all in all, I even stopped, I think, the regular season by like week 15 or something like that, because I realized I was like 52%. And
It was
it was
tough,
just like
man. Like the bad teams that you and I always bet on to cover spreads just did not cover spreads this year.
the public was winning a lot of games. I was even listening to some, I listened to some sharp podcasts on how they look at things, and they said the numbers are just getting sharper and sharper and sharper. And so, I just said it's not even worth it for these regular season games. So let's see what happens in the playoffs. And I think our first big, prediction was like, Texans over Chargers. Like everyone's on the Chargers.
A massive sharp square divide. And, classic half of our Discord was like, who's been watching football all year. We're like, Chargers, Chargers, Chargers. I know what my eyes are telling me. And then you and Kobe, of course, come in and are like, Texans +3 is the play of the season.
Yeah, that was really solid. And then I think we were pretty big on, Bills over Denver. A lot of people thought that Denver were going to keep it close. That was another big one that way. The Eagles, I haven't been able to really get my finger on too much. Even with the Rams, I wasn't really fully certain last week. I thought it could kind of go either way a little bit. And then I didn't even really have any action on Commanders and Eagles because I really could have seen either outcome. I didn't even know what the total was going to be like, a little bit of injury to Hurts. So a lot of questions that way. But yeah, I texted Kobe a couple days ago and I said, so Chiefs are the way to go against Bills.
You texted me too, and I didn't listen.
And I said, this is exactly the same thing I had mentioned. The Chiefs have to be it, right? And, Kobe said, have to be. Everybody thinks that they're luck boxes. Everybody's going to be on Josh Allen and the Bills, and then he's like, you know what that means? And I was like, I exactly know what that means. So I knew he was pushing all the chips in. And once I have like Kobe's stamp of approval, it's like, all right, I'm looking at this the right way. And my numbers had it out. So I think the money line ended up being like 125. My numbers had it out to be minus 140. So it's not like it was a sure thing. It was just that you're getting a couple cents discount, 10 to 15 cents discount, depending on what you got it at. And so it went all in. And obviously that game was crazy yesterday. Fortunately, Dalton Kincaid drop at the end, some calls here and there.
Chiefs for the right side. I think I'm comfortable saying that as somebody who bet the Bills. I don't think the Bills deserve to win that. I mean, very close to a toss up, right? The line was absolutely correct, but I think I would say that I missed on the pre-game handicap with the Chiefs. I think the right team won.
Yeah, it was. And then, I think that, Kobe said this yesterday verbatim. He said, the Chiefs played their B- game yesterday and somehow still beat, the other best team in the
First time
AFC.
scoring 30 points all year, by the way.
There's a big sense of, and this is kind of how I'm looking at it against, the Eagles in the Super Bowl. The Eagles are on paper, maybe better, outside of the QB and
they're always
coaching position.
I've unfortunately had the Chiefs worse on paper than the Ravens, who my numbers said all year were the best team in the NFL, and worse than the Bills as well. And I'm trying to still figure. I know I'm not alone on this because that was a real split two-way action. Like I know a lot of very smart people that were on the Bills. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around a way to correctly model the Chiefs in the playoffs because my model still told me Bills are the side at plus money, and it wasn't right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I look at it in the Super Bowl is that this Chiefs team, I really do think roster is better than any of their Chiefs teams in the last couple of years, to be honest. And obviously, they're Super Bowl winning. I think the totality of the roster is very good, and that's even with like Rice, who's injured and out. But
Kelsey, I would also add that I just don't know what you're getting out of Kelsey at this point.
And I don't think I think their defense is even better than it has been. It didn't really show against the Bills. They were kind of playing with their food a little bit until the end when Spags made some amazing calls, obviously. But I just think that, the totality of the roster was built to be, Hollywood Brown, worthy with a first round draft pick. I think they kind of knew what they were doing. And now you're getting Pacheco a little bit more healthy. And I think they're right there. So my numbers, again, it's looking like Eagles plus 1.5, plus 2, and Chiefs minus 125 money line. Again, I have it right about like 140, 145. I think that some people are going to be coming on the Eagles as it gets a little bit more so. And I think maybe you'll get the Chiefs at like minus 120, minus 115, which is the side that I agree on. I think the opportunity to three-peat, and it's impossible to go against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's tough. And I've been on the other side of it, with the 49ers.
Me too.
I guess last year, and the Eagles a couple of years ago. So I'm just embracing this Magic Mahomes thing and what is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right. I was going to say, can you, as somebody who has gotten my teeth properly kicked in by the Kansas City Chiefs for, I want to say that I was on the Eagles. I don't know about that, but let's just talk more specifically about, I remember last year very clearly, and I was pretty damn heavy on the 49ers over the Chiefs, to be honest with you. And I thought the 49ers on paper, my numbers had them as like a clear 2-point favorite on a neutral, right? And that was kind of the same number that I kept rubbing up against the Chiefs this year as well, right? So like if Baltimore played Kansas City, I probably would have had Baltimore as a 2-point favorite on a neutral. I actually went as far to say that I power ranked Baltimore and Buffalo as two of the three best teams in the NFL, with the Eagles being the other third. And I basically thought and said that I think the winner of Baltimore Buffalo is going to win the Super Bowl. And I gave the slight edge to the Ravens in the Bills game, mainly because I just had so many preseason futures already invested in the Ravens, where they were my team. And then the Bills win that game. And then I kind of almost had a very similar number on Chiefs Bills, where it's like, okay, I still think the Bills are like 2 or 3 points better on a neutral. And it was kind of the same thing with San Francisco the last year, where every single one of these teams, I think in terms of roster, I continue to make and scheme and game plan and how the lines set up against each other and the skill position groups set up against the defense. I still have like the Eagles as a 1 to 2 point favorite on a neutral over the Chiefs, which is exactly well, the Eagles are a slight underdog. I don't know how my brain I can't like I can't I'm not I can't get excited to bet the Eagles. Like I'm not excited to bet the Eagles, but I'm trying to stay the course and believe that there's enough long-term success for me in what I'm doing numerically that is now the time to just say fuck the numbers and believe in the Chiefs at all cost.
The way that I've reevaluated it, having lost the last two, so I was on it when the Bucks beat the Chiefs. I was off. I was on the other side when it was the Eagles that lost the Chiefs, and then I was on the other side when the Niners lost the Chiefs. And I kind of have come to realize in these last 3 years that it's not like evaluate the teams as if they're going into the game on an even playing field. You have to evaluate it like, what's it going to take for X to beat the Chiefs? Like, what has to go right and what has to go wrong? And if you think about the script that way, it's like, okay, Chiefs are going to stack the box. Barkley's probably going to still get his 125 yards. Is that going to be enough to beat them with Jalen Hurts throwing, maybe 90% healthy? And against the Chiefs defense, I don't see Jalen Hurts being able to throw enough balls to win the game. And then the other two differences is that I think when it comes to playoff time, the weights in the model that you put together need to be much higher on like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Quarterback play, 100%.
What they do in the playoffs is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like you even see like Mahomes' rushing numbers in the playoffs, like his total carries went from over under 4.5, like against the Bills. And now they're 7.5 in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's almost like doubling up on, and that's because it's like, he'll do whatever it takes to win, literally. And that's kind of it. It's like the delta between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts itself, despite the rest of the roster probably being advantage Eagles, offsets the rest of it. And then you look at like coach for coach, and Andy Reid's probably second to none. If he wins this one, then I goes ahead of Belichick maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you have to at least start having the conversation. I'm looking at the line right now. It's minus 1.5 for Kansas City across the board, right? So, and that's generally surprising to me because you do not often see Circa, which caters to a lot more sharp bettors, rolling out the same line on a Monday, 2 weeks before the Super Bowl as DraftKings. A lot of those times the numbers will dance around at certain bucks, and I'm sure there will be a little bit of dancing, probably a lot of bit of dancing in the next couple of weeks, but I'm trying to figure out like what the divide is here because I know that there are still NFL people that I talk to that are going to put their heads down and look at their models and be stubborn to a fault and still bet the Eagles. I don't know if I see the Eagles emerging as the public side here. I think I think the public has kind of reached a point with the Kansas City Chiefs where they've either been betting against them and have been losing enough times now to just feel completely defeated and just throw their hands up in the air and say it's the ref's fault. We're never going to be able to beat these guys. And then, the other side of that is the people that have just been riding the Chiefs this entire time. And they've been truly like on the money line, not against the spread, but truly the most profitable team that you can back in the playoffs since like the great runs of the Patriots years, which by the way, Rishi, like the market still struggled to react to the Patriots dominance.
Yeah.
Okay. Like there was a lot of sharps lost on the Patriots all the time. And that's why I'm trying to figure out like what does a public bettor say to themselves about this game? Because it's one of those weird situations where I actually feel like I have a better handle on how the sharp bettors are going to navigate this game. I don't really have my finger on the pulse of what public money is going to do to this line.
Yeah, it's going to be obviously a couple weeks. When I looked at it today, I think it was like 65% of tickets and dollars were on the Chiefs, which was kind of surprising to me. But to your point, I guess it's the sharps are on the other side.
And those numbers
really early.
Yeah, really early. And depending on what book you look at, you're going to be getting obviously different numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it'll be pretty even. Ultimately, from a dollar perspective, like my guess is when it came down to the end of it, it would be about 50% each way. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think there's going to be value on the Chiefs for some time, at least until the money line's 130, and then, might be more of a stay away. From a total perspective, no idea. I presume I think we're going to get a good one.
Over public, and I think that sharps will be on the under as they all
Yeah.
are in the I mean, after getting destroyed on unders over the last two, I know a lot of like smart people that like the under in the Washington Philly game. Um,
Yeah.
I
Chiefs, they were
I
done in the first half.
I really I think I really try and stay away from totals in the playoffs.
Yep.
But so, you don't see any scenario where the Philly starts flirting with a field goal here.
I think the most it gets up to is like 2.5.
Two
I
and a half.
think if it
Yeah.
becomes 3, I think that would just tilt it way, way, way too much. Like I think everyone would hop on the Philly side. And that's frankly where I'd probably start valuing that side. But
Oh,
yeah, I don't,
Philly at a field goal.
yeah.
I would run to grab that.
Even
Run.
2.5 is a pretty big number where it's like kind of contemplating it that way. But I think it's at the right number now. I think it gets to 2, flirts with 2 for a little bit, and kind of stays there between 1.5 and the 2.
And you're thinking Chiefs. You're feeling like we're rocking Chiefs. When are you betting this game? Are you betting it now? Are you waiting to see how the market reacts to certain things, to see how any of the press conferences go, or if there's any injuries or narratives that develop throughout the week? For somebody that's sitting here listening to this pod 2 weeks out from the Super Bowl, would you recommend locking in a Chiefs number now, or seeing the lay of the land in 7 to 10 days from now?
Yeah, no, I've thought about it. I don't think the number gets, worse for the Chiefs, meaning, I think it's 125 money line right now. I don't think it gets, worse than, 130. So I'm not changing anything. I'm not placing a bet at this moment. I think the only news that can come out is news in favor of Philadelphia. They'll say Jalen Hurts is taking off his brace, the
Yeah,
center's back and starting. I think only favorable news can come that way, unless like
agreed.
there's some miracle that Rashee Rice plays, which I don't think that's possible. But
No.
outside of that, so I think that the line can only tilt in the Chiefs' favor. And I'm hoping it gets down to minus 120, minus 115. And so if it gets to minus 120, I'll probably do a portion. If it gets to minus 115, I'll do the balance of that. And if it ends up staying at 125, I'll take that, in a week. But I don't think it gets, any worse than that.
Well, that's very influential on me. My brain is still going to be needed to be twisted into a pretzel seven more times before I make a final call on how I'm going to attack that game. But I can safely assure you that if you're interested in investing money in the Super Bowl, our Discord will be talking about it. We will be very, very heavy on assessing the market and line movement. And when those props come out, we will have a game plan. And I've had a lot of success. Are you a big prop Super Bowl guy? I've done pretty well with them over
I
the past couple of years.
I'm not great. I've hit like the first TD score and then been close on MVP a few times. And so I like long shot MVP, and I like Chris Jones, frankly. And then he retires and goes into the sunset.
I don't see the only universe I see is like if Travis Kelce has 2 or 3 touchdowns and you just get Taylor panouts for 15 minutes of the game. Maybe they give it to Kelce, but there's no way that a Chiefs win is recognized in any other way than crowning Mahomes as maybe the greatest of all time.
It's probably true. And to that point, yeah, if you actually think the Eagles are going to win, there's probably more value in finding
Yes.
an MVP player on that side of the game.
They're going to give the credit to Barkley though, don't you think? Like you would need a somewhat equitable rushing and passing performance from Hurts, in my opinion. So you would actually need Saquon you'd probably need Jalen to steal some rushing from Saquon, and Jalen's rushing numbers to almost be comparable or outweigh Saquon's rushing numbers, and a pretty strong aerial attack as well, where he's slinging 2 to 3 touchdowns, for them to really give Jalen the credit over Saquon when Saquon has been the narrative all year. Or just the other tale of outcomes is a defensive massacre from the Eagles, where you just get you get a giant lump of coal from the Chiefs offense. You get a game that flies way under the total. And you just get a really bad Chiefs offense game where they score maybe 17 points, and you get kind of a low scoring, close, grinded out game for anyone on the. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've said the Eagles have one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense in the NFL all season. My defensive numbers on Philly are like as good as it gets this year for an NFL team.
Yep.
I still don't see them being recognized here as like the defining factor of
Yeah.
if they win the Super Bowl, this is why.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, it would just take like the Chris Jones parts, just like 1 or 2 plays. On the Eagle side, I kind of like a Devontae Smith. You know,
Sure.
it's Chiefs are a slot funnel. You can have like a Deion Branch sort of Super Bowl MVP performance where you get 9 catches and they're bottling up. You know, they're stacking the box against Barkley, so they have to kind of go to the pass.
Sweet, man. Just to infuriate the golf listeners, not too much.
Yeah.
Who is your pick to win Pebble this week?
I was just digging into it before we hopped on the call. Gosh, I like Cantlay a lot. You know what? But I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. I like Tony Finau to
such
come back.
such a Rishi play. Just like such a could have written that up, man. I could have predicted. I saw that one coming from a mile away. I love it. I mean, it's the same thing the Finau thing, second week in a row didn't work out for me. The Sungjae thing paid massive dividends for me hanging on for one more week. But gosh, Finau now has murdered me 2 weeks in a row. I don't know if I have this stuff.
That means it's time.
That means it's time. Talk about an uncomfortable click. All right, buddy. Well, this was a blast as always. And do you got anything to plug? Do you want anyone to follow you on Twitter or reach out to you at DMs?
Yeah, no, I mean, anyone can feel free to reach out to me. It's Rish with, I don't know, 3 H's, 85. And, again, if you have questions about the tennis, we're starting to look at outright markets for the future. And obviously any questions as to Super Bowl and such, we have a lot of sharp ball knowers in the Discord. So feel free to reach out, come enjoy it for a week.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me, buddy.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. We are back. Natalie's here. She's joining me again for our yearly tradition, her annual appearance on the podcast. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's my first time back in over a year.
Yeah.
And my first time on video. So this is fun.
Yeah. First time on YouTube. How does it feel?
A little nervous.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. You'll get used to it. I don't love it too either, but it was kind of a necessary change that we learned from our tech team. We kind of just had to adapt or get stomped on. The future is YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank God TikTok got saved for you, but I think YouTube's coming.
Yeah, it is the new frontier. And I was going to ask you, you don't have your regular microphone stand. Where is that?
Oh, good segue. Yeah, my microphone.
Is that a segue that I'm not aware of?
My microphone stand is in my golf club travel case, which is not in my apartment with me. It is in LAX, which, as you know, last night was quite the evening, as you got the live narration version. Mostly after you were asleep.
I think it was 29 text messages from you, which I did ask you for. I did say, like, keep me updated because it was an absolutely absurd situation. So I didn't know the golf clubs made it to LAX though. I was wondering if they were stuck in Ontario.
No. I called them today and confirmed. I'm gonna go pick them up on Thursday. But yeah, I just want to get this up front for anyone that is still listening to this part of the podcast. First of all, you're a legend. Welcome. We love you. Second of
Honestly,
all,
we love you. Like,
yeah.
stick around. We always talk about fun things.
Second of all, we're going to be talking about nonsense and travel stories and stuff like that. So, we gave you 40 minutes of like really phenomenal top end tennis and golf and football handicapping. If you don't, I know that people don't care about other people's travel experiences and golf rounds and whatever, but that's what we're doing on this back end of the podcast because it's fun. So you are warned. So yeah, I know that everybody, if you've been traveling for long enough, and I travel a lot, everybody has travel disaster stories to speak of, and it is not uncommon. You kind of map it out. Like I probably take around 20 flights a year, maybe a little bit more, and you kind of always just put in the calculus that one of them is just going to be an absolute abject disaster. And so I hit my quota early in 2025. Like I'm there because this was truly the most deranged travel experience that I've ever had. And I found out there was a guy in the Discord that actually shared some important insight that we were not getting from United, by the way, which was that there were like severe thunderstorms in Los Angeles that was actually preventing planes from landing on the tarmac. It wasn't actually the rain, because I was going to do a whole spiel about how people in Los Angeles don't know how to react to the rain, which is true. They don't.
It is true.
But there were some legit thunderstorms as well.
Well, I was surprised too that you were in fact able to deplane in Ontario. Shout
Only
out
because
Ontario deplaners.
only because of me. I was leading the charge of the Ontario deplaners.
Well, I've had this experience before when traveling, that when there are thunderstorms, they don't let you get off the plane because people can't, like the workers can't be on the runway because it's unsafe. So that's always been the issue. But yeah, your situation is crazy. So do you want to tell?
Let me backtrack, and then
give
you
the
can.
backstory.
Let me backtrack. I don't have any notes for this. I'm scarred for life. I could retell the story like it was yesterday, which it was. But but
He's dramatic. We need to preface this part of the pod too. Andy is a very dramatic human, and he loves to accentuate details and give things, and is very hyperbolic. But I can defend him in that this was an absolutely absurd situation.
There's nothing to exaggerate. Everything that is about to come out of my mouth is the exact truthful retelling of the Ontario deplaners and what happened on that fateful night in the air between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So just to give like a little context, I was up in San Francisco visiting you. By the way, congrats on becoming a board certified veterinarian. That's pretty big news that we should also probably share for the listeners.
Yes, big news, which is why you were visiting me partially, but thank you. It's very big news. So now anytime anyone has an actual vet question, I can actually answer it with legal advice. But yes, I did pass my board exam, which is very exciting.
By the way, you would have been a massive asset on that flight, because I haven't even gotten into the lady that had the little dog that was trying to get the little dog off the flight. And the dog was like freaking out, and I think had to urinate and did urinate. And so this lady in the back of the plane, who there were multiple emergencies that occurred on that flight, but there was a lady on the back of the plane that was really struggling with how to navigate, expecting to be able to have taken her dog out a couple hours ago. And so she was trying to get the dog to, I guess you would know a lot better than me, but dogs probably get a lot of anxiety when they think they're going to be able to pee at a certain period of time, and then they're not able to do that.
Yeah, that's sad.
Like, what happens to the dog? What happens to the dog in that scenario if like a dog really needs to pee and is not able to pee, or they're not comfortable in their environment to pee? I mean, we've seen it with Maverick. You know,
Totally.
you're right, my dog. Yeah.
I mean, dogs are different than people. Like they will hold it to a certain point, but I mean, we don't need to get into this, but I'm sure the dog was super anxious and the mom was probably more anxious dealing with that. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my worst nightmare, genuinely. I mean, I don't have a small dog anymore, but I used to fly with Hamilton, my little Frenchie, all the time, and it was always like my worst nightmare that something was going to go wrong on a plane, but yeah, it's awful, and it sounds like there was, I mean, you should give the full story of
I
everything,
will.
but it sounds like there were multiple catastrophic
Oh
situations.
yeah, you really start to see the worst in people when you take away their sense of security. So like, it's truly phenomenal what human beings will do when they don't know where their next meal is, or they don't know if they're going to be able to sleep in their own bed. Yeah, I'm dead serious. Shit started to there was like a 2 hour, you know what? I'll get there. Let me backtrack for
Let's
a little bit.
backtrack. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you visited, he was up in the Bay Area and he visited me to celebrate my passing of my board exam. And we had dinner. I think you mentioned it. Yeah, you did on the pod or 2 days ago.
That I was
That
recording while you were sleeping.
that was, yeah. So if anyone noticed me in the background sleeping, that was me. Um, but yes, yes.
So we were celebrating your board exam, and we were also celebrating my best friend Billy and our, our very close couple friend Billy and Anya. Billy's took a job in New York, so we had a great dinner with them on Saturday night, and then Billy and I played a golf course on Sunday, and so I was taking this flight out of SFO to LAX. By the way, something I do at least multiple times a year, whether it's SFO or Sacramento. Like, I make that 45-minute flight all the time. Uh, and the golf club that I was playing was like 10 minutes away from SFO. So it's like, this is absolutely perfect. I even got to watch the end of the Chiefs Bills game in the airport. The weather in Northern California that day was phenomenal. I wasn't like looking at the weather in Los Angeles, but there was no delays to the flight. We were supposed to take off at 7:30. We boarded without a problem, took off. It was completely fine. About 15 minutes from when we're supposed to land in Los Angeles, we get an announcement from the front of the plane from the pilot saying Los Angeles runways are closed
Wait,
because,
pause. This is when you
yeah,
were in the air or
in
you
the
were
in
okay,
the air, in
okay.
the air. Yeah, we get an announcement from the pilot that there's a thunderstorm going on right now in Los Angeles, and the runways at LAX are closed. So I have to imagine, in the 30-minute window of when the flight took off from San Francisco and when it was supposed to land in LAX, this happened, right? Because obviously there has to be some sort of communication between LAX and San Francisco if the runways are closed and planes can't land in Los Angeles. The flight wouldn't have taken off in the first place if it didn't have a runway to land on. Right. So that was the first piece of bad luck, where it's like, this is a 45-minute flight that I take all the time. And this 30-minute window, they just happened to realize while we were in the air that the runways were closed in Los Angeles. Because if I had known that beforehand, I would have, taken an Uber back to your place in Davis, or, whatever, done my work from Davis the next day. But yeah, so we got this announcement from the pilot, and he basically said to us, "We're gonna just circle. Like, we're just gonna circle around in the air for a little bit and look for a place for us to land." About 45 minutes later of just circling in the air, which was the worst, by the way, because we weren't really quite at a point where we had Wi-Fi yet, but we didn't have service from the ground, so my texts weren't really going through. So then he says to us, "We have to land in Ontario." Um, which is another much smaller airport, I think, like, close to a military base. I haven't spent any Have you spent any time in Ontario? Have you ever flown in there?
No, I had to look it up on the map because I thought it was in Orange County. I thought it was the, Bob Wayne. I think no, that's
Yeah,
why.
that's Orange County.
Is
John
it?
Wayne.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was the Orange County airport, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's gonna have to Uber, like, so far to get home." But no, it's out near Pomona, so, like, if it was a busy time of day, that would be, like, a 2.5-hour drive, but it was late enough. But no, I had no idea where it was.
We're just getting started on this
Mm.
journey. I mean, I
It
mean,
ended up being that long.
yeah, getting to Ontario was just where things really started to get spicy on that United flight. So we landed in Ontario at a remote hangar. So, like, we're not really close even by the terminal. And we land there, and the message that we get from the pilot is that we're first of all, we need to refuel even for a 20-minute flight back to LAX. And then second
Well,
of all,
they circled for 45 minutes, which probably burned up some fuel.
great point.
Yeah.
Great point. So, we landed Ontario, and the first thought that enters my mind at this point is, okay, just let us off the plane and I will take an Uber back from Ontario to my home in Los Angeles. And at this point, you would imagine that a lot of people had to be feeling this way because,
Totally.
Ontario is like 50 minutes to an hour with no traffic in the middle of the night from Los Angeles. And so at this point, this is where you start to make friendships on the flight.
And you're
Everybody.
so good at this. Every time you're so good at this. Every time you have a travel snafu, you always text me and it's always and I sent this to you this morning, but I was like, this is one of the reasons why I love you so much because you always have like the best attitude about it and you always like make friends in those scenarios, which I
Well,
just
you're
so
gonna
love.
laugh at this too. So the reason why I made friends with the guy is I noticed his Australian accent,
Love.
and he had this big family with him. I mean, he had himself, his wife, and then three little children under the age of 7 or 8. And I started talking golf with him because he started
Not
because I was
Australian Open?
well, not
Shout out
Australian
to
Open, although shout out Rishi. We just talked about Australian Open on the front half of the podcast. But,
shout out tennis.
yeah, we sure I started talking golf courses in Australia with him, and, uh, they, for example, need to fly back to Melbourne, and you
Oh
can't
my god.
you certainly can't do that out of Ontario, so they're screwed, and one of the guys in first class is talking about, "Let me off the plane because I wanna book a jet." I wanna see if I can get a private plane, I guess from Ontario to Los Angeles, which is just like, dude, at that point, just take an Uber. But anyway, long story short, we're in this zone where a lot of people now on the plane want to get off the plane and just Uber from Ontario to Los Angeles, and they will not let us do that because a plane's high up in the air, and to get off the plane, you need stairs, right? You can't just jump. You need stairs down for people to get off the plane. And so we had no um, stairs. We had no flight stairs. What am I texting you, by the way, at this point in the journey?
This is early on, honestly, in the journey.
Yeah, I know. We're just
In the series of 29 text messages. You said air stairs not an option. So it's just gonna be this plane heading back to LA when we get fuel, and we are still not even close to refueling. This is at 11:43 PM. And then you made the comment about the owner with the dog who was anxious. And yeah, you were like, I've truly never seen people in desperation mode like this.
So there was this period, there was a 2-hour period where there was no plan. Okay. There was no like assurance of you are either going to be able to get off this plane or you're going to, or we're going to be able to refuel successfully in Ontario and then take a 20-minute flight back to Los Angeles. And so this is where people started getting testy. And this is where the next announcement that they made was, okay, do we have a medical professional on this flight? And I walk to the back of and this is the part where, and generally in these situations, my attitude is this is no more fun for the pilot or the flight attendants than it is for you. Like, trust me, this is the last thing that they want to be dealing with. And you're just going to make the situation more uncomfortable if you're rude to them. Right. But I went to the back of the plane to use the restroom, and now we are getting to the point where people are like, I expected to be on this plane for 45 minutes. I have a medical emergency and there's medication that's like in the checked bags that I can't access right now. And they were even starting to get really mad at the flight attendants because they made a bunch of people check bags that they thought were going to be able to carry-ons.
Yeah.
And now there's medication in those bags that they couldn't use. And there was no indication at this point either that we were going to be able to refuel anytime shortly. So this is kind of the period where shit really started to hit the fan on that flight. And I had to take control of the situation a little bit and take the situation in my own hands.
So you've said this, but I'm curious what taking control in your own hands exactly entails.
I'm so glad you asked.
Okay.
So at this point, people are starting to band together, right? And I talked about
You got your Aussies.
Yeah, people are starting to band together, and there's this wonderful Indian couple that were professors at UCLA that I became very, very close and bonded with on that flight. And because a large part, and this is what I was saying earlier, like at this point, they're not giving us anything to hang our hat on, right? They're not giving us any, like, when we refuel, we'll be able to go to Los Angeles. We don't even know if Los Angeles is open. Okay.
Yeah,
so, but they're also not letting us off the plane either. So I went up to the pilot calmly. This is after I saw many people approach him in the wrong way. And I said, sir, there is at least like 10 to 15 people on this plane that would just like to get off the plane, don't care about their bags, will pick up their bags the next day at LAX, and would just like to Uber home from Ontario to their homes in the Los Angeles area. And he kind of like didn't really give me the time of day. He was acting like I was crazy for stating this. He was saying, well, it's going to take you forever to get from Ontario, and this airport hangar is far away from even the terminal where you can get Ubers. So the pilot was like acting like this request that I was making to be able to deplane, and the request that I asked started a massive deplane movement. Like the pilot was acting like
you started all of it.
I would say
you're the leader of the pack.
I would say I somewhat facilitated the situation because the pilot was acting like this was a crazy idea. Like the pilot was saying to me, pilot was basically saying to me, why would you deplane when you can just take a 20-minute flight back to LAX? Well, we're going to deplane because you have lost all trust in this flight. Why should we trust that you're going to be able to land in Los Angeles? Why should we trust that it's going to take you time to refuel at this point? You know what I mean?
I would have done the same thing. I feel like with airlines, specifically United, like they always say something and then it takes a minute and then it never ends up being what they say. So I would have done the same thing.
So about 2 hours pass or whatever, and this, God. Yeah, and this is like the worst. This is the worst zone where you really start to see the worst in people, because this is when kids are like out of snacks and like can't sleep, and iPads are dying, and all sorts of things of that nature. And I feel so awful for parents in that situation. Like I genuinely, like, I can't even imagine. Anyway, to fast forward a little bit, because we have some stuff to get to on the back end of the podcast. Finally, he levels with me and says, okay, I'm going to make a special request. This is, by the way, just me as the only person talking to him. I'm like the voice of the deplaners going up to talk to him. And he says, yeah, we can get you stairs. We'll work on stairs. And I was like, dude, if I hadn't like pushed you on this, would you not have done this? Like, of course we want stairs to get off this plane. Like, we don't trust you guys for shit to refuel. So anyway, long story short, 2 hours pass. I send you a bunch of things on TikTok. I got into like the darkest annals of TikTok in good ways and bad ways. The husband TikTok brought me so much.
Great.
That guy, like, genuinely the most wholesome, earnest content I've ever seen in my entire life. I watched the entire battle feud between him and Landon Barker, which is like hundreds of videos. I combed through all of that because like my computer was dead, so I couldn't really do Pebble research. They didn't have a flight with the plugs and stuff like that, so I couldn't charge my computer. So I was just ripping TikTok.
Not for you.
Yeah. And anyway, so we deplane, and he kind of like, he looks at me like, here are your stairs, buddy. And I'm, of course, the first person to walk off. And I walk off with a couple of the friends that I've made, because we were both talking about the fact how you have to deplane in this situation.
Totally.
If you live within an hour of Ontario, or even an hour and a half, you have to freaking deplane. And slowly but surely, this was the happiest outcome for me of the night. This made it all worth it. Watching the pilot's face as 80% of the plane walked off. And it was like I sent you pictures because it was a very slow process of it happening. Like, you could start to tell, like, the movement start to grow. Like, I was the first person to walk off the plane, and then, you know, it took like another 25 minutes for everybody to get off the plane, because people were wrestling with that mental decision. And they ultimately lost faith in United and gained faith in the deplane movement.
So my next question for you is, because you're telling the story not super quickly.
We're done.
We're done. Well, it took you a while to get home, but the follow-up question is, have you reached out to United for compensation and or mental damages? I mean, I feel they owe the deplaners a whole evening. They owe a free round trip flight.
I made this joke to you, but you know, what did I text you about? Some would say that this is the end of our journey as the Ontario deplaners, but I would say it's just the beginning.
This wasn't the end for the Ontario deplaners. It's just the beginning.
And we will be forever bonded by this movement. And I told you too, like, when I got in the Uber, which was an hour, you know, I got in the Uber at like 1:30 a.m., 1 a.m. It was like one of the more emotional experiences of my life, like seeing Santa Monica. Like when I finally got to see Santa Monica, I was like, God, why do I live here? Like, I have just been getting haymaker. Like, my mom's house burns down. Like, we have these terrible fires, and you know, we don't know how to react to rain.
And rain.
It's followed by thunderstorms and rains where we can't fly in LAX. LAX is just an absolute disaster. And there's something about LA that keeps pulling me back. It's like we've gotten all these signs. The place that you and I wanted to start a family in and raise our kids just completely burned down with no plan for it to ever be recovered, at least in the next 5 to 10 years. I think it'll be a really long, slow process. And yet getting home to my house in Santa Monica was like the greatest. It was pure bliss.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made it home. I know it was a slog, and I hope it's not the last time that you'll be flying up here. So
Yeah, no, I definitely have PTSD from the experience for sure in terms of like seeing how wrong things can go. But there's not one moment during that entire experience where I didn't feel like the weekend was worth it.
that's good. We had a nice time.
We had a nice time. Okay, give me your section of the podcast because we usually do ins and outs every year where we share, you give us things that you're in on or out on for the year. And then I react to it. But you have a little bit of a different format for us this year.
Yeah, I have obviously been quite busy with graduation on the horizon, my board exam. So I have to confess, I didn't put as much time into this segment, which is disappointing. But I came up with a new idea and I sort of am freestyling it, but I'm excited to see what you think.
Okay.
And it's instead of ins and outs, it's this or that. So I'll give you, and the last time we did this, I presented my ins and outs for 2024. And now I'm instead presenting to you. We don't have too much time, so we'll try to keep the conversation brief about each of them. But it's sort of like one or another, and then you say which one, this or that. And there's really no right answer, obviously.
Don't worry about time. I always give you like a short time, like as a goal, and just with no real belief that we're actually going to stick to it. So don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah,
Hands
I
go
know
away.
that Taylor segment we did, you were like, okay, 30 minutes max. And I think it ended up being like an hour and 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
We love to talk.
We love to talk.
We love to yap. Okay, so this one I was going to do as like a great transitioner, but the first this or that is Northern California or Southern California. And this includes like knowing that I'm here, like the golf courses that are up here, the friends you have up here, Southern California, like where you're happiest, maybe like the restaurants, so it's this or that.
You want me to go first? I feel like this is generally like you give the takes and I react to your takes. Like you're
podcast.
Yeah, but you're the
People
guest.
want to hear your takes.
They get enough of my takes, actually. I think they want to hear more about your takes. I can go first, but I'm more curious about your opinion on this because you also were born and raised in Northern California. So you have strong familial ties to Northern California. It's home for you.
It is home for me. And I'm honestly, now I'm kind of regretting saying this because I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way. I would personally say Southern California.
Wow. Erewhon?
Erewhon, I think, obviously Erewhon. Shout out Brian. I don't know. I feel like you said, I wasn't born in Northern California, but I was raised there. And I feel very connected to it. And especially being in graduate school here, I feel it's home for me. But I also think Southern California is where my future lies and where I feel we thrive together. And I think it's where I've been able to grow as a person, like in my adult life, and it's my place versus up here. I have so much family and like history. So it's kind of my past versus Southern California is my future, if we're keeping it dramatic.
But our future is no longer in the Palisades. Our future burned down. So do you think that we'll still be able to forge a future in another part of Southern California that, because the Palisades is a really special place to us. And so my concern with answering Southern California is how are we going to be able to fill the massive shoes of the Palisades being this place that was like our special place where my mom lived and we've spent all this time and, wanted to, raise, the public high school burned down. Like you can't raise your kids there. Right. So, are we going to be able to find a place that fills the shoes of the Palisades is my question to you.
Gosh, we've talked about this. The Palisades is perfect and it was our perfect place. So I don't know. I think it's hard right now to think about it because I think we felt like it was where we wanted to be, maybe not immediately, but in the next few years. So I don't know. I think we're both we work well together because we're both very flexible, and I think we can mold to wherever we live.
Yep, very true.
So I
well,
think
well said.
Thank you. I think we'll be happy wherever we have each other and where you have golf.
That's true.
Where I have Walter. Shout out Walter, my dog. And I think we'll be happy. I think Southern California has a little bit of everything that we love. And if it's not there, we'll find somewhere else. But yeah.
Better food, Southern California or Northern California?
Honestly, I think Northern California.
The restaurant that we ate at Saturday night was pretty unbelievable.
So good. I think San Francisco in general has better restaurants than Los Angeles.
Is that breakfast sandwich from Devil's Teeth better than any breakfast in LA? The nominees would be the Erewhon breakfast burrito, the Dialogue breakfast burrito. I think I'm probably, maybe it's recency bias, but I think I'm probably taking the Devil's Teeth breakfast sandwich.
I actually would take the Erewhon breakfast burrito.
Wow.
Devil's Teeth, it's an awesome place if anyone lives in the Bay Area or is visiting. Devil's Teeth, it's a really great, like, kind of, it's almost like a surf shop, but they have like surf breakfast shop. Like it's really casual and like just amazing. So I do love that, but I don't know. I like Erewhon breakfast burrito the most, I think.
I'm giving Northern California the golf edge, by the way. I think that golf in totality in Northern California is better because you think about LACC and Riviera and Bel Air. That's the big three in LA, and all of them are phenomenal. But how do those big three stack up against San Francisco Golf Club, Cal Club, and Olympic? I probably give the slight edge to the LA courses, but then I would, out of those three versus those three, I probably give, just because I think Olympics, I'm a little low on Olympic. Cal Club is phenomenal, and obviously San Francisco is special to me and your family. But once you add in Monterey, Brambles also is a new golf course in Calistoga where your parents live. And then once you add in Monterey and you factor in Pasatiempo, you factor in Pebble Beach, you factor in Cypress Point, Monterey Peninsula Country Club. I think that I guess, the counter would be that you could add Montecito into the Southern California conversation, and then you're mixing in Valley Club. No, I draw the line there.
We disagree. Torrey to me is a masterpiece.
Torrey stinks, and Torrey stinks, and you just say Torrey rules to get under my skin.
I love the contrarian take.
Okay, what's the next one?
Not the next one.
Okay, two more of these.
Two more? Okay.
We'll go fast.
Okay. Chiefs or Eagles?
Rishi and I just talked about this. I'm rooting for the Eagles.
Good.
I don't know who I'm going to bet, but I'm rooting for the Eagles. You're pretty out on like the whole Chiefs experience, I would say.
Out on Chiefs. Love Taylor. Love our girl. By the way, do we think a Taylor Travis engagement is coming this year?
By the way, I'm holding, this is what I play with this, like my stress alleviator during pods. It's the friendship bracelet you made me when you went to the Eras tour. I'm not going to say what it says.
I just did.
It's the name of our honestly my favorite Taylor Swift song too. Yeah, I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'm pretty good on the whole Chiefs thing. We were both really sad that the Bills didn't win.
Devastated.
We're both huge Josh Allen guys. You probably more than me.
I love Josh Allen.
Oh, we know you love Josh Allen.
We do. What was I going to say? No, you didn't answer. Do you think we're going to get a Taylor Travis engagement this year?
No.
Really?
Are people saying that?
People aren't, but I think we're hitting is it the 2-year mark now? Yes, it's going to be, this summer will be the 2-year mark.
Well, you can Vic lap the tape of it not being a fake relationship, because when they first started dating, you came on the podcast because you're a Taylor big fan. Not like a crazy Taylor fan, but you're a big fan. And I told you that I thought that it wasn't going to last and was a bit of a media and publicity stunt. And people still feel that way.
Yeah.
I receded on that take a long time ago. Like, I am not in the camp that it is fake or they aren't endgame. I don't think they get. I don't think that there's a proposal at the end of the Super Bowl. I do think it's very much in play that Travis Kelce retires after the game if the Chiefs win, though.
Ooh,
He's just getting old.
He is getting old, and gosh, he doesn't look great.
He's not as good anymore. I don't know if you noticed that, but like, he didn't make any big plays in the game.
No.
He had like 2 receptions for 19 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting engagement before the Super Bowl, but I think definitely this year. So I will Vic lap that if it comes to that. But
Okay, sweet. Hopefully not the only ones getting engaged.
oh, ...
Okay.
Well,
What's
that's a good
next?
transition. Okay, this one is for me, but this or that, over the top or like destination wedding versus small intimate weddings.
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Where do we start?
No, I'm gonna be brief here, but
Sure.
I think that the wedding ultimately needs to fit the couple. So I'm really out on people getting married in places like Italy that have absolutely no connection to Italy other than it photographs well. Like, I really don't love the concept of sending people to these extravagant places and just for the sake of it being a trend at the moment. I really love weddings that have an emotional resonance to the couple. So like, if we got married, there's a couple places, maybe like 2 to 3 places where if people got the invitation to our wedding, they would be like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense for them." Like,
Yeah.
that's a place that is deeply tied to either their future or their past or everything in between. And not really the answer to your question, but I guess I am really out on now I went to a phenomenal destination wedding earlier last year in May in the Bahamas, and it was great. But I think the pendulum swung a little bit too far on these Italy weddings. It's a bit much.
I agree. I think that's the right answer. I would say like whatever, weddings are always best when it's how the couple is. So if it's, a quiet couple and they have a small wedding, I think it's perfect. Or, my best friend who's going to get engaged this year and her future fiance, like they both love San Francisco so much. So keeping it small in San Francisco.
Shout out Hannah and Alex
Shout out Hannah and Alex. Yes, big shout out. So yeah, I agree with that. I think there's no right answer, and for each couple, it's whatever they want. But I agree. I don't know. I was kind of thinking though, like I think destination weddings can be fun, and I don't know. I guess
they could be amazing. I had the time of my life at Jake's wedding in the Bahamas. I don't think that fits you and I. Now
No.
we say that with like our number one place being in a place that is going to be it's not a destination. It's not a destination to us because we go there so often, but it would be it would be considered a destination to most people that would go, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's tough for us specifically because my family's from the West Coast, your family's from the East Coast, so it's kind of like anywhere is gonna be a destination, but
unless we get married in Chicago, which you love. We have no connection to Chicago whatsoever.
That is false. Shout out Billy, shout out Elsa. We have multiple
our biggest connection to Chicago is your best friend lives there, and I love Chicago Golf Club. But Billy doesn't even live in Chicago anymore.
True, but connections. Anyway, we're not getting married in Chicago. That's
okay. Okay. What's the last one?
Well, there's 2 more, but
okay, that's fine. We do 2.
They're both like kind of stupid and they're just like rapid fire. Okay. This is kind of this one is how should I say this? A glimpse at maybe what's to come in your future newsletter from what I heard in future podcasts that you've done.
Wow.
But the options are The Substance or Anora.
2 movies that came out in 2024, both that I liked. we saw The Substance together, which is quite the experience. I preferred Anora. You probably didn't. You preferred Substance, huh?
I actually would agree with you. I would say Anora.
I thought you were kind of out on Anora.
I was when we initially, so I watched it the other night and I was texting you and saying like, this is weird. I don't vibe with this. Like it's kind of weird. But by the end, I really liked it.
Okay. Yeah, it was a very resonant ending.
Yeah.
Same with Substance, by the way.
The Substance, I honestly think we should see it again. I don't know if you saw it
I'm
twice.
probably good on those last 40 minutes. Like, I don't know if I want to see that again.
The best part of the whole film.
But you like the gross out stuff. You're a doctor, so you have more of a stomach for the disgusting stuff. I don't have as much of a stomach for the body horror stuff. I can appreciate those. Cinematic achievement, certainly.
Yeah, it certainly was. And it was quite different, not what we expected. So I put those two together. I was looking at the Oscar nominees and I was feeling like I'm slacking on my.
Got it. You got to catch up. If you want submissions, like we're doing an ISN top 10 movies of the year that's coming out shortly with, I'm bringing on like a big movie very smart movie guy. Shout out Robert to help write it with me. Yeah. You're
orientation leader.
You're a high school orientation leader. That's true.
Who we love.
Okay. Last one.
Okay. The last one I feel like is kind of weird too. So I have two couples, romantic celebrity couples.
Okay.
And the guys are both actors, Paul Mescal and Gracie Abrams.
I'm a huge Gracie Abrams fan.
I know. Or Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner.
I'm going Mescal and Gracie Abrams. And it's
100%.
It's kind of an easy one for me. Like I was lower on the Bob Dylan movie than consensus. I thought it was fine. And I think that Gracie Abrams I thought that her album, the album that has That's So True, which is like maybe the greatest song of the last 5 years. Like That's So True might be the greatest pop song of the last 5 years.
You said this rings a bell. I
feel
like
anytime I hear a great song, I'm like, I think this is the greatest pop song of the last 5 years.
This is Andy's dramatic, hyperbolic side that I hear every single day.
That's So True is like one of the greatest composed pieces of music I've ever heard.
Oh, she's exceptional. I'm obsessed with her. I was so disappointed because she opened for Taylor on a section of the Eras tour, and she just wasn't opening at Santa Clara. It was Haim, the band, and not her. But yeah, I was so disappointed.
What's your favorite Gracie song? I want to see if we have the same one.
Well, I love I Miss You.
Mine's kind of a deep cut. I don't know if you're gonna know it.
Of course, because you love the contrarian. My favorite, I Love You, I'm Sorry, which is like not niche at all.
That's a great one. I Love You, I'm Sorry is phenomenal.
Well, I just like her lyrics are so good. Obviously I'm a Taylor fan, so I like Us, which I don't know if you've heard that one. You would like it.
I've heard all of it. I'm a big Gracie fan, but it's not my favorite song. Where are you at on Risk?
I don't know that one.
Risk's unbelievable. Come on. You would know it if you heard it.
I'm sorry. No, there is I Love You, I'm Sorry. So there's I Miss You, I'm Sorry, and I Love You, I'm Sorry.
Okay.
Wow, she's emotional.
My favorite Gracie song is actually not from this album. It's from her 2021 album. It's called Feels Like. And you should definitely check it out.
I think I know it. I'm really bad with names, but I think if I heard it, I'd probably recognize it.
Listen, Cam is not going to have time to add it into this pod, and we don't want to be kicked off Spotify, but listen to Feels Like. If anyone's listening to this right now, it's unbelievable. Yeah, so huge Gracie fan over here. There was a moment where when Gracie was the only person that Inside Sports Network followed on Instagram. We didn't even follow me because I think it's funny. I think it's funny when people do that, and then I decide to follow more people. Okay, what's the last one?
That is the last one. That
Sweet.
was 5. That was 5.
Okay.
I thought, let's keep it short and sweet. We always end up talking way too long about the stuff. So,
which is my fault this time with the travel stuff.
That's okay. The people wanted to know. They were curious.
Actually, was a lot of curiosity in the Discord for the travel stuff.
Was there?
Yeah. More curiosity for you, I would say, for sure, though. So, yeah, we'd love to have you back anytime.
On the pod?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So you just have to get what people want to hear. Like, I mean, I've done this before and we've done ins and outs and stuff like that, but I'm
You have
whatever
you have a lot more takes too. Like I felt like you were keeping a lot of takes in the holster tonight.
takes on the things I offered or
Just
things that I
yeah,
haven't
just like
had
when
trouble in.
I get you cooking, when I get you yapping, you have some like strong opinions, and I feel like you're getting more you're not yet fully comfortable like ripping the heater takes that you have.
I mean, it's still early in the year.
It's still
Like,
earlier in the year. It's still early
yeah,
in your podcasting career. It's your first time on YouTube.
first time on YouTube, but I feel great. I feel super comfortable. I'm, you know, chilling. So I feel
Yeah.
like we
That's
can
your
only go up.
message to the potential haters is I'm still chilling. I'm here.
Honestly, any publicity is good publicity. So I welcome all the haters.
Yeah, I told you to tweet your Ludwig future, and we told you to tweet it the way that golf Twitter touts tweet it. So you bet
Yes.
Ludwig 16-1 at the Masters
Yes. And I'm honestly glad that I did. I'm so terrified that the number, or I was terrified the number would go down because that's
because
what happened with
you learned about CLV from Brian.
I learned about Clove and I'm and I'm so glad that I got him at that number. I am so confident in him. He looked fire. People can say what they want. I thought he looked incredible at Torrey.
Well,
I
he was sick too over the
he
weekend.
was
So
sick,
before people pile on Ludwig for his performance at Torrey, keep in mind he was sick.
but that's okay. Like, here's my feeling. Everybody's entitled to their emotions and their feelings about Ludwig. My heart lies with him.
I know.
My belief is with him. I feel it in my soul. I think he's
You feel it in your body too.
well, I'm not the only one apparently.
I sent you the Kyle Porter tweet about I was not prepared for my wife's reaction to Ludwig coming on TGL.
Yes.
And I think when you first saw Ludwig for the first time, it's kind of a spiritual experience for you
Oh,
too.
totally. I'm like, wow, I feel like this person is just thriving
It's
and
just 6'5" in Swedish.
he's 6'5" in Swedish and he's thriving and he it's just like I said, like I hashtagged it in my tweet. He's light on his feet. Like
I
he's
don't
just
really get that. Like, where did you come up with that? Like, why did you
light on
come
his
up with
feet. Oh, he's
yeah.
just like he just dances around like he's very like dances around on his 6'5" body. No, I feel like, and you've talked about this with Rory. I feel like to me, what I look for in a golfer when I'm looking for someone to pick as a winner, I want someone that doesn't feel the pressure on themselves, especially when it comes to these big tournaments.
Right, and we should add some context. You hit Scotty at the Masters last year.
I did. I hit Scotty despite
You
he
went 0 for 3 in the other 3 majors, but you hit Scotty at the
that's
Masters.
okay. That's
Yeah,
I'll take the one. Like
and
I'm
you got him at a really good number. You got Scotty 8-1 at the Masters because
yeah.
you bet him early. So for all the people that are criticizing, let's slow down with the Ludwig majors bets. Well, she's kind of the queen of CLV. Like she hit
Yeah.
Scheffler 8-1 at the Masters when a lot of people were holding 4-1 Scheffler tickets week of.
This is true. I really one thing I pride myself on is I pick something and I stick to it. And I will always admit when I'm wrong. I will always say, like, you know what? If I pick the wrong person, that's the wrong person. But I stick with my gut. And I really feel like the way I saw him play last year, and granted, it's been a year and a lot of things have changed, but I really felt like he had a good time and was enjoying himself. And it was his debut and he
Yeah.
did so well. So I think like
Now he
move
has some experience. He knows what to do when
yeah.
he gets there. Yeah.
And I think there's just like I said, I just think the not putting too much pressure on themselves is severely underrated in this
Yeah.
sport.
It's not talked about in the data space too much. You're right. And we also told you we gave you the out.
On the
Like,
rabbit hole.
yeah, we gave you
I
the
want that
rabbit.
filter.
Yeah, we gave you the out too. Is like if Ludwig stinks for the next couple of months and he's available at 25-1 week of the Masters, you just do the tout playbook and you act like you never bet it, and then you bet it again at a better number and forget the future even existed. That's what all the people on Twitter do, which is frowned upon, but we like to joke about it.
I also don't really feel like I need to rub it in people's faces, I guess. Like,
No, you're anti-Vic. Like,
I'm anti-Vic. There's no
yeah,
need. Like, I
yeah,
feel it in my heart. Like
yeah.
we've talked about in multiple pods before. I'm not a competitive human.
At
So
all. Not a competitive bone in your
that
body.
hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Only with myself. It's
Only
a
with
good
yourself. There you go. Thank you very much, Natalie, for joining me. We'll see you
always.
again next time. Where can people find you?
They can find me at what is my Twitter?
Natalie and
Natalie Engs, I think. That's
yeah.
my Twitter. Follow me, subscribe to me, and send me. I don't think I can do messages, but
Why are you asking people to send you messages? It's the last thing both of us want.
I don't want
Want
that. But
people sending you messages.
if people have requests for the pod, like
Yeah.
I feel like that maybe they could send it to you.
Or sure. Sounds good. Yeah, we'll talk
I
about it.
go on Twitter like once every few days, so
Yeah.
I probably miss it.
Healthy amount, honestly. I
Yeah,
wish I could say the same thing.
yeah.
All right, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you.